rest is good and rest with God is a good thing. The other day, I needed to drive down to Dutton Park to drop off my pool pump because it broke. I had no idea where I was going, but how good is Google Maps? All I needed to do was punch into Google Maps where I was going, and it told me how long it was going to take to get there, gave me a few different options of which way I could go. Do I want to use the toll paths or not? No. And then told me exactly how I needed to get there with instructions in the car. Technology has made our life so convenient. Put your hand up if you can remember having to use a Refidex. Oh, lots of people, cool. Yes, showing our age. For those people who don't know what a Refidex is, it's a book of maps. It was dumb. Like, you had to search up in the book where you wanted to go and then with your finger go all the way back to where you were to try and then give instructions to people. However, if you've used a Refidex, you know that normally meant you had to turn multiple pages as you were driving. So I remember sitting in the back of my parents' car with my finger in about 6 different pages trying to give them instructions on how to get to where we needed to go. Technology has made our lives so convenient. This trip down to Dutton Park, not only did Google Maps tell me where to go, I could listen to a podcast. I may or may not have made a sneaky stop at Hungry Jack's using the app as well. Technology is great. I'm sure technology has made your lives more convenient. Can't be bothered wandering up and down the aisles of the shops, just do a click and collect order. It's dinner time, the couch is comfy, just Uber Eats it and someone will drop it at your door. Food, you just need to go out there. They don't even need to talk to you anymore, they just drop it and run. Want to cancel that, catch up with a friend or break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, just text them, it's easy. Technology has made our lives so convenient. However, as technology has made our lives convenient, I find that I am getting busier and busier every day, and I'm getting more and more distracted. I counted during the week that I have 5 different inboxes that people can message me on, plus a phone and text. So pretty much people can contact me whenever they like. And every time my phone dings or my computer does something, I've got to stop doing what I'm doing to see what's happening on my phone. An app buzzes, doesn't matter how deep in thought I am or how much I'm having a conversation with someone, I've got to stop doing that and see what's on my phone. Now, I'm sure that you've all been like me, where you're mid-conversation with someone and you get a message on your phone and you've just whipped it out and you're reading the message instead of talking with the person. Yes, it's a safe space, you can acknowledge that. No, am I just the only one? Surely people have done that. Or if you're also like me, you hear the message come through and instead of pulling it out, you don't pull it out, but from that moment on in the conversation, I've got no idea what the person I'm talking to is saying because I'm just thinking about who sent me a message and what are they going to say. Technology is convenient, but the flip side of that is relationships with each other are actually not as strong as what they used to be. Relationships take time and space. And it feels like that life is actually working against us being able to have relationships with those around us. Now, I think that's not only just a picture of our relationships with each other. I think that technology and the busyness of life is actually causing us to struggle to have a connection with God. Now, I get it. Life's busy. You might have been up all night last night caring for a sick child. It's busy at work at the moment. You've got to pick up extra shifts because people are off sick themselves and so you're working more. Maybe you've been sick yourself. Life's busy and our connection with God can be strained as a result of that. This is not a new concept. This is not a new problem about our connection with God. Over the last several weeks, we've been journeying with the Israelite people through the book of Exodus as we've been looking at our series of finding freedom from what enslaves you. Here we have an Israelite people that were slaves in a foreign land that God miraculously saved. Slaves for 400 years of doing the same thing, forced to do the same thing every day, day after day for 400 years. And it's easy to see how their connection with God would have been lost because of their circumstances. Yet God miraculously saves them through the parting of the Red Sea, feeds them in the desert when they're complaining because they think they're going to go hungry. And last week we heard about how God gave them the 10 Commandments to help them see what it looks like to follow him. Today, we're going to wrap up this Exodus series by looking at God giving the Israelite people the instructions for building the tabernacle, which is just a big tent. But the big tent was designed to help them be able to connect with God. So we're going to have a look through Exodus chapters 25 to 27 and 35 to 40. Can I just put a disclaimer out there? Don't stress, we're not going to read all 9 chapters this morning. You're welcome. I like to think that I'm a bit helpful at home. I like to get up and, do the washing and the dishes. And one of the things that I like to try and help with domestic life at home is I go and do the shopping for our family sometimes. Now, I thought that I was actually being really helpful in doing this. However, I've found out recently that I think I'm a little bit more trying than helpful. Rachel gives me a shopping list, and so off I trot down to Aldi. And we've all experienced the stock shortages recently. And so whenever I'd come to something on the list that wasn't in stock, I sort of panicked. It's like, oh man, what do? Like, strawberries are on the list here. Oh, I know, I'll call Rachel. So I ring Rachel. Hey Rachel, what do you want me to get instead of the strawberries? And then she'll tell me. And shopping trip continues. We'll get to the yogurt. It's like, oh, the yogurt we normally get's not here. Oh, I'll just call Rachel. Ring Rachel. What am I going to do? Saturday night now, family is moving a pizza night. So here I am in front of the frozen food section. The pizzas we normally get aren't there. Oh, I'll call Rachel. So I ring Rachel. Now, sorry, this isn't multiple shopping trips too. This is just one singular shopping trip. I thought I was being helpful, but what I didn't pick up on was the subtle hints that each phone conversation was getting shorter and shorter. Until eventually Rachel just said, look, you're a grown man, make your own decisions. Apparently I'm not. I tried to make my own decisions, and then I bring the shopping home, and then Rachel's like, what did you get this for? The kids don't eat this stuff. So, look, Rachel's very gracious. And the next time I went shopping, she not only gave me the list, she also then gave me like a second list that was all the alternatives if the first list wasn't there. So now our family does actually get what we need. Throughout all of these chapters in Exodus, God outlines in precise detail how he wants the Israelite people to build his tabernacle. Now, I don't think he was doing that in a way to avoid the Israelites calling him every 5 minutes to find out what's going on. Instead, he was giving them the specific instructions they needed because building this tabernacle was going to be so important for them in their connection with God. Now, we've got because Moses had an iPhone. We've got a diagram of what we think the tabernacle looked like up on the screen there. So there's heaps of different parts that you can find yourselves in those chapters. Things like there was a box that was built called the Ark that was laden in gold, and inside that went the 10 Commandments that are on the tablets. There was a gold table with other bowls and lampstands and things like that to help with worship. There's the tent thing that looks like it's on fire, but it's not really. That's actually the tabernacle part that had different rooms in it that needed to be made specifically because different rooms had different purposes. On the outside there's also an altar, and then you can also see then the courtyard is created by almost like sort of a fence thing. God outlines throughout the 9 chapters of Exodus exactly how he wanted this to be made. And the main reason why he was so explicit, we find out in Exodus chapter 25 verses 8, and it says, "Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them." See, God was setting up this tabernacle, and he wanted it done specifically because it was God wanting to hang with his people. Now, God wanting to hang with his people is not a new thing. We read right back at the start of the Bible in Genesis, that God created the Garden of Eden and made Adam and Eve to live there, to hang with him in the garden. That was until Adam and Eve decided to eat the apple, and then as a result they were kicked out of the garden. But it was God wanting to be with his people. And here we see another example of God wanting to be with his people through the creation of this tabernacle. Now, God did this in a way because he wanted them to see that not only was God wanting to be with his people, but he was wanting to provide space and time for them to be able to be with him. You see, when the tabernacle was created, it was made and designed to go right in the middle of the Israelite camp. Here they are in the desert, having been freed from slavery, and God gave them instructions to set this tabernacle up right in the middle. The Bible tells us that all the tribes were then to camp around the outside, and God wanted them to see that he needed to be the focal point of their new society. They were meant to be right in the middle. Not only that, it was also a space where they were able to come and bring their gifts and their offerings and their sacrifices to be able to worship their great God. So not only was it a space for them to be able to connect with God, it was also, God was setting up a time for them to be able to connect with God. God gave them, the priests, specific requirements about how they needed to do all of their sacrifices and what times they needed to do that. But we also read that God was reminding them about the Sabbath. The Sabbath was a time of rest where the Israelites were going to spend time with God. It says in Exodus chapter 35, verses 1 to 2, Moses assembled the whole Israelite community and said to them, "These are the things the Lord has commanded you to do. For 6 days work is to be done, but the seventh day shall be your holy day, a day of Sabbath rest to the Lord." If you know anything about me, you know that I don't drink coffee. Sorry, I'm one of those people. Now, in fact, I actually don't have anything that has, or very rarely have anything that has caffeine in it. I can't sit still at the best of times, so caffeine and Greg are probably not two things that go very well together. In fact, if I have something with caffeine in it, I can feel my heart racing, I speak faster than I normally do, that's pretty fast. I can't sit still at the best of times. And as a result of that, rest for me is something that I've struggled with for a long time. I've always thought that rest was like, look, I'll get to that. I've got too many other things to do. Or in the past, 10 years ago, Greg would have just kept working and working and working until he got sick, and then that was like, oh, now it's my rest time. However, I've been reminded over and over again recently that rest is good and rest with God is a good thing. I find myself at home, even now, that like I'll be sitting on the couch, I might be scrolling through Instagram or something like that, and then I'll sort of catch myself. It's like, oh, sorry, Rachel, I'm gonna go and do something soon. And she's like, I don't care what you're doing, sit down and have a break, it's all right. Rest for me is something that's taken time, and I've needed to be reminded of it over and over again. A couple of weeks ago, I was having my day off on a Thursday, and I deliberately made the decision to try and slow down and have a restful day. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning, the kids had been dropped off at school, and I was reading on the couch, and then all of a sudden it was 9:30 and I sort of woke up and I went, oh, I had a nap. And initially I was disgusted. It was almost like, oh no, turning into one of those people who naps during the day. But then I had to catch myself. It's like, actually no, rest is all right. Rest is a good thing. God was reminding his Israelite people that rest was a good thing. They'd been in slavery for 400 years, working day in and day out, and God was calling them to something different. However, they needed to be reminded over and over again that rest with God is all right. In Exodus chapter 16, when God's providing them this manna, this food in the desert, he's reminded them, don't go out on the Sabbath. It's not going to be there. In Exodus chapter 20, he again reminds them in the giving of the 10 Commandments where he says, the Sabbath is holy. Make sure you follow it. And then here again in Exodus chapter 35. God, through the creation of the tabernacle, was setting up a space where he was telling the Israelite people that he wanted to hang with them, and he was providing space and time for them to be able to hang with him. How are you creating time and space to hang with God? Maybe for you this morning, this is like your first time in church or the first time that you ever heard of the idea that God wants to hang with you. And you're like, I've got no idea where to even start. That's cool. what I encourage you to do is pick like 5 or 10 minutes a day. Pick a time. Doesn't matter if it's the first thing in the morning, doesn't matter if it's the last thing you do at night, doesn't matter if it's when you get home from work or uni, whatever it is. Pick a time and then pick a space. Maybe you've got a really nice comfy couch at home that you like to sit in with a cup of coffee. Maybe it could be wandering down the street to the park, down the road. It could be sitting in your car just as you're going to leave to go home from work. Pick a space and a time. And I encourage you for 5 or 10 minutes, spend that time with God. Spend that time praying, reading your Bible. Maybe you want to start with some of the accounts of Jesus' life in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. In addition to that, I encourage you to find other places where people that are following God are hanging out. Come to church regularly. Join a small group. Following God is not meant to be a solo sport. Maybe for you, you've actually been following God for a while and you sort of got this catching up with God regularly sort of down pat, but you sort of feel like God's calling you into more, or maybe you feel like that you need some things to be shaken up a little bit in your relationship with God. Something that's really helped me with that is a book by Gary Thomas called Spiritual Pathways. And in this book, he outlines a number of different ways that people connect with God. One of those for me is being in nature. We like to go away on holidays to Mooloolaba, and one of the things I love to do most is getting up in the morning and going for a run and then going for a swim at the beach. And it's hard for me not to feel close to God when I'm bobbing away in the waves and looking around and seeing his awesome creation and giving him glory for it. Now, this book outlines heaps of different ways that you can connect with God. For you, it might be actually reading about deep theological truths. For you, it might be that you actually connect with God through celebration, through caring for other people. I encourage you to find what it looks like for you to connect with God and carve out some time to do that. Another way that we can regularly connect with God is through pairing things that we're already doing. Are there certain things in your life that you're doing regularly that you can then pair something to that to acknowledge God's presence throughout the day? Every morning I need to have breakfast. And it would be easy for me to be able to pull out my phone and try and do Wordle for the morning. But instead, I actually try and read my Bible. Just a chance for me to be able to pair something and acknowledge God's presence throughout the day. That might be for you that every time you're doing the dishes, you're going to pray for your family. Every time you're vacuuming the house, you stick on some worship music. Find some different ways that you're able to find that space and time to connect with God. In Exodus, God told the Israelite people to create this tabernacle because he wanted them to have a place where they could hang with him. Yet in all of this, the tabernacle was always pointing to something else that was to come. You see, God had this space and he gave the instructions to the priests, and on an ongoing basis, they needed to do sacrifices to be able to atone for the sins of the Israelite people. But this whole picture of the tabernacle was pointing more to something that was to come, a perfect tabernacle. In John chapter 1, verse 14, it says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." The tabernacle in Exodus was a picture of what is to come, and that perfect tabernacle we see in Jesus. When it says there that he made his dwelling among us, that can literally be translated to tabernacle with us. God himself, Jesus, coming to show us the full glory of God, the full truth of God, the full grace of God. And it's in Jesus we see the lengths that God would go to be with his people. Jesus would come and die on the cross and be raised back to life and would pay the punishment that we deserved, so that through his sacrifice, we can have a relationship with God. Our God wants to come and hang with his people. And it's through faith in Jesus that we are able to hang with him. We're going to take some time now, going to carve out some space and time to be able to reflect on that very thing, as we come together to celebrate communion this morning. Communion is normally a time where we come and remember the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross for us. And I invite you to come and join in with communion this morning. I'm going to give you a couple of different options to how you might want to engage with that as well. You may be someone who's like, yep, I'm going to jump up here and I'm going to grab the little parts and I'm going to take them back and I'm going to sit and thank God for what he's done. And you're more than welcome to do that. Maybe for you though, it might be that you actually want to just sit in your seat for a little while. Just sort of spend some time praying. Maybe God's got your attention about something this morning and he wants you to spend time with him. So I encourage you, do that. And then after you've spent your time with God, then come up and get the elements. Maybe for you though, you really feel like that you need some prayer about some certain aspects of your life. Maybe some things that are blocking your relationship with God. I encourage you, we're going to have some people up the back there at our prayer space. And I encourage you to go and have a chat with those guys and get some prayer about what's going on in your life. We've got a communion table up the back there too. So after you've got prayer, you can also then engage in communion. But I encourage you during this time to carve out some space and time to hang with God as we enter into communion. So I invite you now.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did and you want more Lifepoint content, subscribe to our channel right now. Or if you're in the area around Moreton Bay or Rothwell, head to our service. Sunday, we'd love to see you there. lifepoint.org.au for all the details. We'll see you soon.